way I step, something in my jeans. And FOI, you know that's the team, huh?
Peace. This is your brother Aidan X, and welcome to the processing class. Peace. This is brother Aidan X, and welcome to the processing class. Today I got a very, very special guest. I got brother Nick X. Salam alaikum. Peace be upon you, brother.
Alaikum salam, brother. Pleasure to be here.
Yes, sir. The first question I just want to ask you, man, let's just get straight into it. How did you get the teachings? Were you born in the Nation of Islam, or did you get the teachings some other type of way?
Yes, sir. Excellent question. I was not born into the Nation of Islam, and it was truly a journey ending up here. It was a lot of religious discovery, trying to find who God was and what God meant to me, being a Black man in America. I was raised a Christian and Episcopalian, and basically an all-white church. We're the only Black family there. And I quickly kind of just grew out of, very quickly, Christianity just did not suit me and my idea of who God really was. In terms of how they taught God, how they perceived Jesus, how they taught Jesus, and what our mission was here on earth. It was very easy, I suppose, for them to, talk about, their reward in heaven and after they die, and their purpose of just loving thy neighbor and things like that. But it's very easy, I think, or I suppose easier for us as Black men and women to question how true that is, that our reward is after death, when we're living a hell here and they have their heaven here on earth. But I suppose it was my freshman year of college. I'm in my second year now, when I really began exploring other alternatives. I suppose, like with a lot of brothers that I've heard, my introduction to the Nation of Islam happened after watching the movie Malcolm X. My freshman year of high school, I was really going through a lot of problems with my mental health, depression, anxiety, things like that, and a big coping mechanism, I suppose, with something to take my mind off of things, has always been watching movies. I'm still a big movie person, and Malcolm X, the movie Malcolm X, had been on my list for a while to watch. I hadn't watched it until I was 18 years old, and before that, I knew basically nothing about the Nation of Islam, nothing about the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the minister, anything like that, or anything about Islam, really. So I decided to watch it one day, and it really did just kind of open a lot of doors for me and blew my mind. It's a long movie, and I sat through that without once checking my phone, getting up to go to the bathroom, anything like that, truly because I just never heard of Black people talking with that kind of rhetoric of being gods and being God's chosen, and having a nature that wasn't as in the way that we are now, and seeing how one person transformed from being not of their nature into becoming a great follower of the messenger and of Allah God. It was really amazing to me, because loving yourself and really just appreciating your Blackness and not being ashamed of who you are is something that I always struggled with. I grew up in a town that was 2% Black, like 7% Jewish. We were the smallest minority. We were really the minority's minority. I did not have many Black friends growing up. I did not have any other Black families in my neighborhood, anything like that, in my school. So a lot of my life, especially growing up in public school, was trying to please white people, peer pressure, doing what I can to fit in, appear white or think like a white person, practically being ashamed of being Black, hardly considering myself Black. And that's really how I was until I become an adult. Just no love for my race or anything like that. And being introduced to Islam through that was truly a blessing. But it wasn't for me straight to the Nation of Islam after watching that movie, because I really did become a big Malcolm, Malcolm person, like a lot of Black people are, where they're just all Malcolm, but nothing about the person that taught Malcolm. And so I did go to Sunni Islam. I attended a mosque here in Philadelphia, Sunni mosque, but I quickly became dissatisfied because the lectures that they gave, not only was it not very the Black, it was very Arab presence in the mosque, and a lot of the teachings that they gave disguised, they would say, well, this is how you become a better Muslim, but a lot of the practices that they would push down your throat was basically how to become an Arab. They would dress you up like one, they would teach you their Arab traditions, and the way that a lot of times they acted or treated Black people was not something that you would have thought Islam was like from just watching the Malcolm X movie, for example. I live in a city right now that is very violent, very impoverished. We have one of the biggest wealth gaps in the country, Black people killing Black people indiscriminately. But you would not know from the sermons that you would hear in that Sunni mosque. They would never talk about how we could use our religion to actually fix the problems that we have here, in our city, which is something that I was truly searching for. And I suppose it was last June when there was a parade in Philadelphia for Juneteenth, when I first ran into the brothers from Mosque 12, which is the mosque that I'm now a part of, selling the Final Call newspaper, where the parade had ended. And that is when I first heard, or at least like seen the minister's face and kind of put the name Farrakhan to the face in terms of who the minister was. I had heard of him, but I didn't really know much of him. And especially after all that, Sunni tuning that I had gone through, I was really a part of that. The nation killed Malcolm, and Minister Farrakhan wasn't a real Muslim, and all of that stuff. I had that preconceived opinion by the time I had first encountered actual members of the nation in person. But I did take a paper, and I read the program, and that's when I really began to say, wow, like these truly are solutions that I had thought of, but really never saw anybody saying that this is what we as people, as Black people needed, such as proper education or separation and things like that. And then there was a completely different event a month later. I went to New York with my family, because I have some family that lives in New York. We went to Harlem, and outside of Mosque 7, they had a table where they were selling copies of Message to the Black Man by The Messenger. And so they gave me a copy because I had said that I was interested in learning about the nation. And I took that book home, and I have never read a book faster. I mean, the words practically poured off the page in terms of just reading the messenger's words about our condition and how we get out of that condition. And so that was a true blessing. And after reading teachings from the messenger and the minister, I practically sought out the nation and went straight to processing. Found an event where the members of the nation were at, and found the right brother to talk to sign up for orientation. And yeah, that's how I got started.
Yes, sir. What was one of the things that was a trial for you growing up? Like you said, in a predominantly white area, because that's similar to me. I grew up in a predominantly white area, but what made you not? Because a lot of brothers just kind of are okay with sinking into that, are okay with kind of merging into that? What do you think made you dissatisfied with, and wanting to get involved with what's going on with your people?
Yes, sir. Well, I suppose like for a lot of people, I really had been comfortable just being assimilated into a white neighborhood without any Black people. But I suppose as I got older and as things like the death of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, as things like that began to pour onto social media and the discussion of race and the condition of Black people became more mainstream in conversation for people our age. The fact that I was Black came up a lot more, where I couldn't just ignore it anymore, right? I only had white friends, and when for example, like, yeah, when Black Lives Matter became such a talked about sensation a couple of years ago, you can't ignore that you are the only Black person in the room when they're discussing people that are your color and discussing your race, and hearing how a lot of white people, even ones that grew up with Black people, around Black people, truly just do not understand the first thing that it is like to be a Black person in America. Or just the ignorant things that they would say, the solutions, or how they would use our struggle as a way to self-gratify themselves, or use the fact that they were, an activist to gain some social media clout that that they think would, make them appear like a better person. The way that they would just kind of hijack Black struggle was really what I think pushed me in the direction of realizing that even though I lived in a white community, and even though I did wish I was white and think I was white, it wasn't going to go away the way in the country that we live in. You can be as rich as you want to be. You can live in the nicest neighborhood, but if you're Black in the way that America is, you will never be able to forget that. They will never let you forget. And it was truly just a wake-up call for me. And it quickly became a conversation of, well, who has the answers? What religion or what political ideology has the answers of how to truly fix our problems? We've had, the Democratic and Republican Party in office for years, different presidents from different parties, and we've experimented different social groups and Black groups. We had the Panthers, we had Marcus Garvey, we had Booker T, and we've had many Black leaders that have explored what the answer is to our condition. And I suppose what really attracted me to the nation was seeing the results and seeing how it truly does transform Black people spiritually, mentally, economically, in every aspect of their lives. It can take the worst of us, or what's considered the worst of us, and truly make us the greatest followers of God and the most upright people that we have ever seen.
Yes, sir. Some people may be watching this and say, why is the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and the Nation of Islam, why is this relevant in 2022? This is not 60 years ago, some people may say. This is not the Jim Crow era. This is not the slavery era. They think things is more ahead of time now. Some people think that racism is not really, it's a thing of the past.
Right.
So why, can you answer that? Why is the Nation of Islam and the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad and the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan and the teachings of race, why is that relevant in 2022?
Yes, sir. I'm glad you mentioned that, because I wanted to mention earlier that my first time listening to the minister, when I had still had that opinion that that the minister was not a real Muslim, or that that the Nation of Islam was not a group of true Muslims. When I still had that opinion, I had decided to just hear the minister in his own words, and I'm truly blessed that Allah guided me to seeking out the truth, other than just taking as a matter of fact what I had been told. So I went on to Spotify, and I put in Farrakhan, and heard from a podcast called Farrakhan Speaks, which had lectures of the minister. And the first lecture that I had heard had a section called Crabs in a Barrel, where the minister took that analogy of crabs in a barrel, of crabs trying to get out the barrel, and they're all trying to get out, and they're pulling each other down as they're trying to get out, to our struggle. And what made it click that the minister was not just some other Black leader, was how it truly answered questions that I had been asking myself ever since I started asking those kinds of questions about our race. And I believe that a big proponent of this idea that things are getting better for the Black community is that we can say, well, look at Obama, look at Kamala Harris, look at Oprah. And coming from a family where, coming from a family of wealth, that was something that my own family had said, to say, well, look, Nick, I mean, things aren't how it was when I grew up. We have Black senators now. We have, Black people as entertainers. We have Black people, on the news. We have Black athletes. We have Black people with money. But what the minister had pointed out in that lecture that really made me go, wow, was if the success of a few successful Black people is not being used to the benefit of the whole, then that's not success, that's not progress. And a lot of the successful Black people that we consider to be rich, or we consider to be wealthy, we have to really ask ourselves, well, how many of them are independent? How many Black people do we consider to be leaders that don't go the extra mile or don't go the full way in activism, because they know that the people that are in charge of them, or the people that are paying them, they can pull the plug and they can shut them up. And then all of a sudden, they're out of a job. Or you'll find that there are certain wealthy Black people that have a platform that will actually try to do the right thing. But then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a scandal comes. They're accused of something heinous, and they're shut down, or they lose their jobs. And a lot of our successful Black people, or our wealthy Black people, the ones that we point to as successful figures, or as proof that racism isn't what it used to be, they can't be fully utilized, and their success and their skill cannot truly be utilized because they are still connected to white society, where they have to always watch what they say, because if they don't please the white people that put the money in their pockets, they'll just be thrown right back in the barrel. And that was such an important reminder that I really needed to hear, because the things that we point to as evidence of our success is truly always shut down by the reality of how things are. We're constantly reminded that progress is not really what it appears to be. And we have a lot of different races. We've been here as Black people the longest in terms of minorities. And we're constantly reminded that that we are a struggling minority, or that we are held back, or that we are being targeted, whether it be from white people shooting up Black neighborhoods, or police brutality. It always becomes a mainstream topic, or a quick a headline to show that we are still behind, or we are still living violently, or that we are still struggling. But when it comes for the people that actually put us in this condition to do anything to solve it, they always fall short, I should say. But we have anti-Asian discrimination laws, and the Italians and the Irish that face discrimination now, say, are some of the most well-off groups in this country. And it shows that even all of the races that came here, Black people still have not found compensation for all the work that they have done. And although we can look at the Black leaders that white America props up, the majority of us are still living in conditions that any other country would consider inhumane for their people to have.
Yes, sir. Did the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, the Nation of Islam, teach you to hate white people?
No, sir. No, sir, not at all. It taught me to love Black people, so much so that white people hardly come into my frame of thinking. We just, and as the messenger reminds us in his teachings, we just want equal justice under the law. We want to be treated as any other race of people on this earth are treated. We just have to, and I say this a lot in conversations, whether it be with Black friends I have now that aren't in the nation, or white people that ask me about it, why do you always focus on the past? Why do you always focus on the atrocities that happened? But we can't move forward until we address what happened and who put us in this position. And once we learn that, and once we learn what has happened, most importantly, I think we can make connections to what's still happening and see that a lot of the things that we say happen to put us in positions of poverty are still going on to this day. And yes, many of those, how do I put it? And the condition that we are in was definitely perpetuated by white people, but now it is our own people, it is other groups of people that keep us in the condition that we are in now. And if anybody that is that criticizes the minister or criticizes the Nation of Islam, if they took a second to hear what we say, the stress is on our own people to change. White people aren't going to take us out of a condition that they put us in. So it's no use trying to demonize them or hate them or focus purely on white people or calling them evil or hating them. That's not going to get us anywhere. We don't have to do that. All we have to do is look at their track record, their historical track record, and that is enough for us to want to be on our own and succeed on our own and come together to solve our problems with the materials that we have as Black people. And that's the only way that we're going to get out of the condition that we are in. So absolutely not. We preach love for Black people so much so that we just don't have enough room to be focusing about loving anybody else until we love ourselves.
Yes, sir. Did it teach you to hate gay, LGBT, transgender, Jewish people?
No, sir, not at all. And that is another thing, absolutely, that we hear a lot. In high school, and really my whole childhood, for example, I did theater. I did a lot of acting growing up. So I had a lot of friends, whether they be Black or white, that, consider themselves LGBT. And growing up in a town that had a very significant Jewish population, one of the most Jewish concentrated towns in my state, or really in the country. I grew up with a lot of Jewish people. And when I joined the Nation of Islam, there were a lot that were bold enough to either text me or call me or talk to me in person and say, well, Nick, aren't you, isn't the Nation of Islam a hate group that, that hates gay people and hates Jewish people? And my first response is always to just say, well, who in the Nation of Islam has done anything against an LGBT person or a Jewish person? Who is it that is painting swastikas on synagogues? Who is it that are, with the tiki torches chanting, Jews will not replace us? Who is it, that are attacking LGBT people or, discriminating against gay people? It's not the Nation of Islam. We're not the ones attacking Jewish people, and you will never see us attack a group of people, yet we are considered the ones that hate them, and we are considered the hate group. It is not the Nation of Islam that that perpetuates that kind of violence. And you would think that if we are truly a people that hate those people, or are taught to think that they are lesser human beings than the rest of us, then something should have happened by now that would prove this claim that they like to put out. Absolutely not. We learn from the Torah. We learn from Jewish teachings, and although we are absolutely taught about the actions of Jewish people, or people that use their religion of Judaism as a shield for criticism, or like to claim that they are, acting in the name of Judaism, but really commit acts that are truly the opposite of the religion which they claim to represent. This is not hating Jews. This is calling out people on their hypocrisy, and calling out people on their actions that have hurt Black people, and that have hurt our people and held us behind. No one, just because there are a group of people that have suffered historically, and they have suffered historically, that does not mean that they are, immune to being criticized for their using of Black people for their own elevation. And the minister obviously has received a lot of criticism for pointing it out. And we still see to this day that Black people in America are constantly forced to apologize or backpedal, or say that they do not like the minister, or apologize for saying anything good about the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, just because of how they view it. And I believe, Lakeith Stanfield, Nick Cannon. There have been a lot of celebrities this year, last year, that still are forced to distance themselves from criticizing people because of their religion, or criticizing or being forced to, apologize for their association with the nation. But our track record quickly disproves any claims of being hateful towards any other group of people.
Yes, sir. Now, with Islam and people who consider themselves Muslims by faith, there's a huge kind of view or perspective or misconception on the treating of women. It's known for domestic violence, known for, pretty much controlling and abusing and oppressing women. Now, you being a man in the Nation of Islam, registered in the Nation of Islam, were you taught to oppress women? And does the Nation of Islam force women to cover and force women to do anything or oppress women?
Not at all. And that is definitely one of the biggest misconceptions or intentional lies that is spread about Islam as a whole, is their view of women, or how women are treated. And you will find no such teaching in Islam, or in the Quran, or from the Nation of Islam, that is oppressive towards women. We're absolutely taught to uplift and protect and respect our women, more so than anybody else. The covering of the head is absolutely a big talking point that is used to try and discredit Islam. But if you were to speak to any sister, any Muslim woman, you would see that they cover their heads out of self-love and out of protecting themselves. I remember hearing Muhammad Ali say that, anything precious, anything valuable is hard to get to. Covering themselves is a sign of protecting what is valuable. No one is putting that headscarf on their heads. No one is forcing them to cover. This is something that sisters do after they understand why they do it, and they agree that it is something that they should do. There is no compulsion in religion, as we're taught in the Quran. Allah does not force anything upon us religiously. We must take those steps to read the Quran, to understand why Allah asks things of us, or why things are the right thing to do for ourselves and for our religion. And it's not just the sisters that cover, obviously, either. There are things that men and women are inspired to do by our God, out of respect for ourselves, that does not just target women or target sisters. And I believe that the treating of our sisters and how you see that Muslim women are treated especially in the Nation of Islam, shows truly that we are not at all oppressive of our women. There are so many great sisters and women in the Nation of Islam today or in the past that both men and women look to for inspiration, whether it be Mother Tainetta, Sister Clara Muhammad, Sister Ava, and our young sisters, whether it be on social media or in music, that continue to inspire us, men and women alike, that shows that Islam and the way that we have been taught to view our women and respect our women and protect our women and uplift them has truly put them on an equal footing in our society in a way that you truly do not see in any other group, in any other society, where it is true self-respect and understanding of men understanding women, women understanding men, and most importantly, them understanding themselves in the roles that they play in this world, and how integral it is for men and women to have each other. You know, a man is not complete without a woman, and we obviously could not succeed if we were oppressing our women. And I remember, if my memory serves me correctly, as when the nation was first reaching its status of mainstream or its attention, it was the sisters who came in droves because the teachings resonated with them most. We, as Black people in America, whether they be Christians or Muslims, our women are truly always looking for men that suit their needs. Men that aren't going to leave them when they get pregnant, men that aren't going to hit them, men that aren't going to disrespect them or mistreat them or expect more of them than they should be doing. And the role of Black women in our society truly shows the failure of our society and of our Black of Christianity in our society, since most of us are Christians, and how we treat our women. If the Bible and if Christianity hasn't been doing its part in making sure that our women are being protected and our women are being treated correctly, then the religion has failed us. And Islam has shown that we, using the teachings of our messenger and using the teachings of the Quran from Allah God himself, we have been able to produce a nation with stable families, with functional families, something that you don't see, unfortunately, commonly with our people. Most Black children aren't raised in stable relationships. But when you learn the teachings of the most honorable Elijah Muhammad, and when you learn about how to value a woman, how to value yourself, how to be a man and how to be a father, instead of just having kids, raising kids, then you start to see examples of stable families in Black communities where otherwise you wouldn't have seen it very often. And so again, I believe that the criticism can quickly be disproven by our track record of how the Nation of Islam has been able to produce so many Black children, Black men, and Black women that love themselves from birth, rather than falling victim to the conditioning that white America has been guilty of making Black people so self-destructive to themselves, to their women, to their children.
Yes, sir. Well, I just want to thank you, man, for coming on here, brother Nick.
Yes, sir.
So much, man. I definitely look forward to hopefully building more with you in the future on the digital platform. And I definitely got to come by Philly and
Yes,
meet, man.
sir. Absolutely.
Yeah, man, because my mods don't have the young brothers. So
Mhm.
yeah, definitely got to hang
Yes,
with y'all
sir.
brothers, man. Yes, sir. But thank you so much for coming on your little brother's platform that he's trying to build up.
Absolutely.
Thank you, brother. May Allah continue to bless and protect you and your family. And please send the greetings to the brothers.
Absolutely. I definitely will. Thank you, brother, for everything that you do. You are truly such a great presence on social media and
Praise
your
be to Allah.
podcast. Everything is great. So yes, I thank Allah for the work that you're doing, brother. Keep up the great work.
Yes, sir. Salam alaikum.
Alaikum salam, brother.